Okay, today we've got my dad's old lantern. I remember when we were still living in Chicago many years ago that we would take this out to do a little bit of night fishing out on the docks and, do some net fishing and stuff like that and catch some of the small fish. And original owner, I was talking to my dad the other day, we pulled it out, and of course everything is kind of froze up on it. The valve wheel doesn't want to turn, the cleaning lever doesn't want to turn, and of course this being, I believe, a 74, is a model 228H, the gasket on the cap is gone, but everything on this thing is original, with the part safe on the bottom, and it's got a generator in there and some mantles and stuff like that. The last time this got used was when I took it hunting. Of course, we didn't get anything, so it was more like camping with guns. But nonetheless, the last time I used it, and this was way before I got into anything Coleman, but I still always adored these things. This is actually the lantern that you could say that this is what started the whole thing with the love affair for all things Coleman. So at any rate, yeah, this is the one that started it, right? So and you can see in here, the only mantles I was able to get at the time were the Instaclip ones, which are, of course, horrible, but they do work. And so that's what's on there at the moment. But really what this video is about is getting a one-piece fuel cap like this rehabbed and operating again. So the cap on this is green, obviously. The newer ones are like all brass. They're not matching colors. So if you want to keep the same color, you have to replace the gasket. These were never designed to really be replaced. You can see that the interior of these has been kind of swedged, so it locks that gasket in there, and it also makes it rather challenging to remove. So I usually have some dental tools that I picked up. These are great because anytime you go to any kind of antique show or flea market or something like that, you're almost always going to find these, and these are super handy for getting in here and working on these items. Now, this gasket here, absolutely hard as a rock. That is not going to seal. It has like extremely low wear on it because this didn't get used a whole lot. So it's in beautiful shape. It probably just needs a little bit of cleaning and some wax on it, and I just need to apply a little bit of heat to both of these things here to get them to kind of probably free up, and then we'll be good. I'm actually going to probably try to see if I can heat it up enough without actually having to take the whole frame off. But really what this video is going to be about is not that. We'll cover that in a separate one. It's going to be, how do we get this out of here without absolutely zorching the color off of it? Because if you do heat these up, and it's the only way you can get these gaskets out. If you heat them up too much, you're going to discolor the cap. It's going to, it'll burn off the paint, or the paint will come off, or all this other kind of stuff, and it's really kind of disappointing. So I've done that to a pristine red cap, which I feel pretty bad about because the rest of the lantern was absolutely perfect, and I kind of messed up the cap, so I'll have to repaint it. I've been told that Krylon Banner Red is an excellent paint substitution for repainting the cap, so I got to get some of that and repaint it so it doesn't look so terrible. But I ran across a really great tip from someone on the Coleman Collectors Forum, and we're going to enlist the help of one of our old friends, which we just lit up the other day. And the way that this works is, instead of using something like this to heat the cap, or maybe even something worse, something like this, right? You can do that, but I really wouldn't recommend it. This will absolutely wreck your cap. And and this will heat this up too much to the point to where it doesn't, it will discolor the paint. Personal experience speaking here. So what the suggestion was is that you take it and you put it on top of here. How simple is that? So it gives enough heat so that way it gets the rubber to kind of soften up, but not so much that it kills the paint. And you get the bonus of running a lantern. Oh my God, what could be better? So that's what we're going to do today. I also have my replacement cap seals. These are what are called the number 3 fuel cap seal from Bassnets. They don't sponsor this channel, but it'd be okay if they did, right? Anyway, from Corsicana, Texas, which is nice to support a Texas company. So anyway, so their seals work really good. I know people say, oh, hey, you can use an O-ring. Do not use an O-ring. These are designed for flat rubber. And think about it. You're replacing a fuel cap of a pressure vessel, and it's going to be under pressure. Do you want to have the proper flat gasket that actually seals in like the manufacturer intended, or do you want to roll the dice with an O-ring which may slip to one side or another, or under pumping pressure may start to actually leak fuel out of it while the lantern is lit? So I can tell you, no O-rings for me. They're not even good as like a temporary fix. I'd have to be in a really bad spot to use them as a temporary fix. So anyway, keep that in mind. These are easily available. Just look up EJ Bassnets and you can get them on there. They're not that much. I think they're $8 for 10 of them or something like that. And they work really good. So with that, we need to get the heat source started. And now I'm kind of thinking that even though this is a great heat source, it's also loud. So I guess we'll have to kind of deal with that. So we'll get this going and wait for the fuel. Try not to burn all of my fingers when it finally sprays. I did light this up earlier because I had to replace the mantle in it. And it's actually pumped up pretty high right now, but it's taken a really long time to get fuel up there. So we'll just wait a minute and I'll just kind of fix this in post. Yeah, that's what I'll do. There we go. Right. Okay, now we're rocking and rolling with a lot of noise. We're going to go ahead and set this on top of here. And it'll take a few minutes because obviously the lantern's cold and it's got to get itself up to temperature and start heating that cap. But it shouldn't take too long. I mean, these things throw quite a bit of heat. I also like using the single mantle here, and especially the mil-spec, because they have a very, very small gas tip orifice, as I've said before, and I've got one here from a Petromax, but basically this is would be like the tip. This is enormous compared to the Coleman. This would be like the tip on the generator. So anyway, with a very small hole, it sprays a very small amount of fuel, and therefore it doesn't get so crazy hot. So the idea again being trying to be in a spot where you don't wreck the paint on it. So hopefully that's what we'll do, or hopefully that's what we won't do. The other thing, while we're sitting here waiting for this to heat up, is that Bassnets talks about how you go about changing one of these gaskets and how you get it back in, because you basically you're going to pull it out of an area where it was never meant to be pulled out of, and then you're going to put this in an area where it was never meant to be shoved back in. Before Coleman would actually go there and swedge that center pull down in the middle, it just basically looked kind of a bit more like a hollow tube. This fits right over that. They put it in the press, it goes whack, it spreads the metal out, holds the gasket in, and off you go. Well, we can't unspread the metal, so we have to kind of like pry it out around it. And so that's the idea here for warming up the cap, where we get the rubber soft enough so that it can actually come up. With older ones like the 2-piece caps, or the 3-piece gas, I'm sorry, 3-piece, which is actually on here, you can basically disassemble it, hit it with the torch, just fog the heat to it, and we've seen that done before. And then once it's all the rubber's all crispy, then you just basically go in there and pick out all the crispy bits. I throw it in the ultrasonic there for a minute or two, which cleans the rest of it out. It comes out looking good as new. New gasket in there, and off you go. These are definitely tricky, and so we get to the point of how do you actually get this rubber around and into the cap. And it was really interesting. They talked about using a paint can opener, which is, well, it's probably better to see it over here. So it's got a little bit of a curved end on it. And this is what you use to actually put this, this cap back in. So you'll use this little curved piece to kind of like pull it around that projection, and then you're able to get it in there. So it actually works pretty darn good, and it takes maybe a couple of times to really understand exactly how you actually get it done. But yeah, well, I use these. We had a huge storm come through here, and I used these in the rain picking up stuff, and so they're really stiff. So what we're going to do is that we're going to see exactly how far we're coming along with this. So it's going to be hot, of course, and see if we've got any kind of any softening. And yeah, we do. It's definitely spinning around in there. Now, getting it out of there probably another matter, but it does definitely want to move. So that's good, because we'll likely just kind of keep going with this. Make sure that I'm not wrecking anything up too bad. So we'll set that back up there for a little bit more heat, and go from there. So yeah, that's kind of the thing. So we're gonna just let it kind of go here for a bit, and we'll probably speed all this up. I'm thinking that I don't know if you really need to see me picking it out of there, but you probably want to see me putting it back in. So when we do that, we're going to move one of the cameras over here so you can see the kind of action that you need to have to be able to get that to work. Yeah, getting these things out is really the hardest part. Getting them in is not too bad. And you also want to be careful, because even with the gentle heat that I'm using here from this lantern, it's still kind of dislodging some of the paint, which is unfortunate. So, but we'll do the best that we can here to get this to come out. This is probably also one of the most common failures when people buy a new lantern is the cap gasket. Now, like I said, you can just go buy a new one-piece cap that has all this in there, but then you're going to end up having something that is not going to match. It's not going to look like it did. You can probably find a replacement one-piece green one on eBay, but you'll probably pay $20 for them, as opposed to paying about a little less than about $1 or so to do this. And then I guess, you know, if you acquire some scratches and stuff like that along the way, then it's just part of the character. But yeah, see, it's unfortunate. It is kind of losing a bit of its paint, which is something I definitely didn't want to do, but it's kind of unavoidable, I suppose. Yeah, these things can just be really challenging to get off. And so now as the rubber has cooled down, it's gotten hard again, so it's not really wanting to come out very well. So I'm going to kind of keep picking at it here a bit. If I can just get a chunk of it out so I can get the pliers in, then I can hopefully grab it and just grip it and rip it. But I don't know if we're going to be that lucky. So a little bit more heat, and go from there. Yeah, it's the paint's coming off more than I expected. The last one I did on this, I guess, it just came out a whole lot easier. The more difficult they are to remove, and the more heat you have to use, and the longer you have to mess with them, then yeah, you stand a bigger chance of wearing off the paint, because the paint gets soft just like the rubber gets soft, and then it starts to come off. So yeah, but you know, it's not discolored. But it is kind of wearing off a bit, which is, like I said, kind of unfortunate. We're slowly, ever so slowly, picking away at this. Of course, it doesn't help that it is that the gasket came loose and it's now spinning. So every time that I try to grab a hold of it, it just wants to move. So, but I'll tell you one thing's for sure with these picks, is that you don't want to go get the Harbor Freight ones. I did get some of those because I was like, hey, they're cheap. Well, they are cheap. They're extremely cheap. They're made with very, very soft metal, not stainless. And about 1 or 2 uses, and they just absolutely bend. You cannot put any kind of force on them whatsoever, and they're just useless. So with these, man, it is really impressive how much force you can put on them, and they just don't want to break at all. See, now I've got finally got myself a clear spot, which is good. So if I can get underneath there, because one thing you got to understand too is that the center of this is really large and the whole of this is really small, so you can see how much of that actually has to go underneath that swedged portion. So yeah, there is actually, even though you can see this gap that's in there, it's still connected underneath the swedged portion there. So yeah, we'll just keep going. A little more heat. There we go. This is looking good. So now I've got it broken out from underneath, so it's no longer connected. So now I can kind of get in there and start to kind of pry underneath it and pull it up that way. So that's good. May actually want to use a small screwdriver for this, which is this one. Let's see if I can get up underneath there and just pop that out. Boy, it doesn't want to come. It is very, very, very reluctant to come out of there. Yeah, these old ones like this, oh man, it's just, I really hate these one-piece caps. And it's actually when I made this, I was thinking about making this video, I'm like, man, am I going to regret this? Yeah, see, look at this. That's just terrible. The heat and everything, it's just, it is rubbing off in these on these rough gloves here. So yeah, my dad may end up with a brass cap after all. Well, I'll just keep working at it. I think really what I need to do is almost need to have like an X-Acto knife or something where I can kind of chop it up, like one of the ones that has a blade on the end, because yeah, this doesn't want to come out very well. So probably what's going to happen is, and I'm going to sit here and struggle with this for 20 minutes, and I'm going to spare you looking at it. I'll show you kind of where I'm at. You can see that I've made a notch in there right here where there's no gasket, and the whole trick is to get the rest of that out of there. So we'll just jump cut to where it's done, and so you don't have to sit here and watch me fart around with this. Man, what an incredible pain in the posterior that was. Okay, well, I spared you a bunch of seeing what I had to end up doing. Yeah, so the cap didn't fare as well as I had hoped. So if you're watching, Dad, sorry about that. But unfortunately, it was kind of unavoidable. But so as you can see, the interior of the cap is completely cleared out. The exterior of the cap has definitely got some wear on it, and we've got parts and pieces of the crystallized gasket pretty much everywhere. What I ended up having to do, because the problem was that I just was unable to get any purchase on it with needing those pliers I was using. I wasn't really able to pry it out very much with this, and of course they held up great. They did not break. So like I said, if you can get the real ones, they are very good. And but if you don't, then yeah, you'll get up with those gosh darn Harbor Freight ones that just bend the first time you use them. So anyway, I put a lot of force on them. They didn't break, so didn't bend, all in good shape. But I think what I've done along the way is that I think I've actually may have discovered a new way to get these out of here without using any sort of heat. And that involves a Dremel tool with a ball cutting tip on it. And so what I did with this was basically push down in several locations around it, basically putting little holes all the way around. And then with those little holes, I could take the tips of the needle-nose pliers, stick them into the hole, squeeze together, get a good grip, and then rip it out. And it weakened enough that it was able to rip it out and get the whole thing out of there. So that was successful. So the good thing about that is that if I did that, I would not do this. I would not get any of this discoloration. Well, I wouldn't remove the paint because we wouldn't be using heat anymore. So I think that was unfortunately a hard way to learn that. But now we're up to the point to where we can actually put this in there. So here is the issue, right? The quite small hole of this and the quite large swage portion of the cap, and that has to go in there and it has to get underneath that. So what I'm going to try to do here is I'm going to grab this camera over here and we're going to move it, and we'll see if I can't get this pointed in such a way that y'all can see what it is that I'm doing, and hopefully you'll be able to see the method here as to how that actually works. And I'm going to bring back my board here so I don't scratch up anything more than I already have, and hopefully this should be able for you to see exactly how this is done. So yeah, so your first step is obviously throw it in there, and you just kind of got to get started. So I use this curved portion here to kind of push it down and start trying to get it around that corner. And you can kind of push from the inside too, and use it as a way to kind of pry it down. So you can see that we're starting to get a little bit of progress here. And it's really amazing. It goes in there a lot easier than you think. So this is what we look like already, and so you can kind of see that this has gone in, this is yet to go. So we'll continue to do that. But on their website, they actually recommended this tool, and I just so happen to have one. And it's really good because it allows you to kind of push and get it around that corner, and then you can kind of push down and get it unhung up off of the threads. So you just kind of slowly work at it, and honestly, it goes in there way easier than you ever thought possible. So so we're almost done, actually. And it seems kind of like, how on earth can you do that? But it certainly does work. So I also see that it sometimes hangs up on the threads because the threads kind of grip the edge of the rubber. So you just kind of sit there and spin it and work it down and get it down in there. But that's it, right? It's all done. And it looks good except for, well, that side. Yeah. But yeah, so this is definitely the tool that you want to use. That little curve there allows you to kind of push in there and get it down, and then you get that one-piece cap in there, and everything works great. So now we can screw this back on here, and now it'll actually seal and hold pressure. So that part's good. I haven't even checked to see if it's going to hold. Oh yeah, it actually still has very good ability to hold pressure here. It has no fuel in it, and I haven't tried undoing the wheel, but really that's all we're going to do today with this video. We'll pick up on another one where we start getting into this and see if we can get her running again and return to my dad in fine shape. So anyway, with all that said, thanks so much for watching, and if you like what you see, please subscribe. It helps the channel out. It helps me. If you hit the little bell to the next to the subscribe, you'll get a notification. It tells me every time that you, notification will tell you, not me. It'll tell you every time I upload new content, and it gets listed, so you'll know exactly when all that stuff is available for viewing. And you know, shoot me a comment. Anything that you might want to see in the future, just drop it in the comments down there below, and we'll see you in the next one. Until next time, keep them lit.